shared that you are doing workshops and trying to foster green entrepreneurship, and you're showcasing those kind of impactful initiatives. So can you talk a little more about that? And what are the different kinds of workshops that you've done? You mentioned what you're going to do in the summer, but more from the point of view of contributing to the environment.
That's a good question. So basically, when we first started as Together for Blue and Green, mainly our first collaboration was with the university. And I really love the fact that they accepted us and they were like, of course, we would love to have people know more about climate, especially that the university is about marine studies. So it somehow really correlates with what we're doing. So for the workshop that we had was all with students, so we didn't have old people with us. It was really interactive, and some people were like being introduced to the climate aspect for the first time, and they have noticed how it really relates a lot with their majors. So the first workshop was more about climate justice. So we talked about the climate movement, how it started, why we need to advocate for climate activism. It was more of spreading awareness and teaching youth of more about what is truly happening in the world, why people are manifesting, while people are being scared and somehow freaking out sometimes from this climate struggles that they are going through, why the MENA region is the one being targeted the most with the climate impact, why we need to worry and we need to act more. So we started more of having this kind of workshops to first spread awareness, because what I believe is that some people think when you say climate change, they be like, oh, that's a scientific term. It needs so much academic background. So they don't know that it's actually somehow a term that is open for everyone to be involved in. And it's not something that you need to have an academic background on to act upon. So we started by simplifying this term to them and somehow explain that this is actually a global concern, that somehow it requires everyone's somehow inclusion so that we can fight it back. Of course, it's too late to fight it back, but at least lower the impact, because especially Algeria is being targeted constantly. So this is actually for the first workshops that we started doing. And then we have been nominated by MGCY, the major group for children and youth. This is actually pretty well known in, I would say, civil society internationally. And they nominated us to host the first MENA Youth Environmental Assembly. As, of course, and as a MENA entity, they nominated us to do this. So I was pretty happy, because it was like somehow we are now being involved regionally. It's not only nationally. It's true that we were doing this online, but we were actually given funding by the Swedish Institute. They provided us with funding so that we can fund the speakers, so that we can fund any ideas that comes into like anything, but we need to spend this funding on. And it was pretty good funding, honestly. For an online event, it was a pretty good one. We had this first regional MENA Youth Environmental Assembly, and it was like we had it in 3 days, and we hosted speakers from different entities in the MENA region, addressing different topics on peace and security as well. And it was like a mix of workshops where some people shared their interests, some people talked about other conferences that MENA youth are actually not aware of. So it was like a mix of everything where youth actually were really benefiting. And in terms of the entrepreneurial aspect, we dedicated small funding for ideas, like for project ideas, in case some of them wanted to initiate I don't know, actions or initiatives or whatever. We collaborated also with Peace First. It's also an organization that provides mini grants, $250 plus our funding. So it would be great funding somehow to initiate something, especially in the MENA region. We chose five top projects to fund them, and they were pretty good projects. Some of them, they had like turning organic trash into beauty products. Some of them they were like a variety of beautiful ideas. And some of them like had their own projects in which they can have like this summer school to teach youth about the importance of agriculture, how they can plant, like the basics of planting. And I love that. It's like a summer school where they can do it all outside, and it can be sustainably implemented as well. And more. The ideas were amazing. The sad thing about this is that for some of them who are living in countries of conflict, it was so hard for them to get the funding. Like, eventually they ended up not getting it because they didn't have access to their own banks. And it was pretty sad to somehow mention this in our report at the end, that they were not able to get their own funding. And even Peace First, which was like an organization that was supposed to somehow facilitate this, it was pretty hard for them. So eventually they ended up getting it in another country, another neighboring country, or meeting someone by chance for them to hand it to them. So imagine like the complexities of these, I would say, logistical barriers that will delay you from taking actions, that will delay you from inspiring your community and leaving your own impact just because of this tiny logistical problem. So you can see this is also part of the challenges that we mentioned before. But other than that, our workshops were always like really had diverse topics on food insecurity, even like technology. We had also a workshop on that, on how somehow we can use technology for us to somehow facilitate advocating for environmental topics, and also for scaling up eco-friendly and green startups and businesses. So it was pretty interesting, honestly. And this session specifically inspired me to somehow start an entire program that is dedicated for this, because I have noticed that the Algerian youth, they are really interested in everything related to technology and startups. So I was like, let me do a program for that. And you have no idea the amount of applications we received after doing this. So I realized that my community is obsessed with technology and profits making. So I was like, okay, we can do something like this, but we're going to link it to environment.